Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, whoever you may be, however you may be. I really hope everyone's doing well today. Going to do a bit of a unique podcast today. In the usual, I suppose it's my normal routine to give you the rundown of the video and what it's going to be about, but as many of my subscribers know, I tend to kind of ramble on a lot of the time, and a few points need to be covered that I would like to get across about the current state of affairs with humans in general. I suppose that's a very, very vague statement. But mostly men. As you know, I'm speaking to men most of the time because I'm a man myself. And yes, I acknowledge that men and women are unique in many ways, and that I tend to lean more towards the masculine side when it comes to my discussions. Therefore, I appreciate the fact that women follow the channel and that I have female viewers. But looking at the actual statistics, I see that it's mostly men, and a lot of them not necessarily young men, but men even my age and older than me. Means that all of us guys that are out here are just kind of surfing our lives, trying to interact with other people that we meet, trying to make the best of a situation. And everybody from the age of 20 to 70 has completely unique experiences, yet a very similar common thread, a very, binding aspect of most men, which is the need for direction and understanding from other men that have been through these things, that have faced trials, that have faced the tribulations. And I've been through quite a few of them myself, and I feel like I don't even touch on this topic enough, and I've been questioning myself why. Because I actually watch a few channels that I have enjoyed for quite some time. One of them is, and some of you guys may have heard of it, it's Dry Creek Wrangler School. And it's this guy named Dwayne. His last name is Noel. Dwayne, I believe it is. And he's an old guy. He's actually only like 58 or something, but he has a long white beard. He's a horse trainer, he's a cowboy style, got his, Southern accent. And the guy is a wonderful, addition to the YouTube community since around the COVID days when I discovered him. And I was like, this guy's got some shit to say. And he found his niche speaking to young men. And I'm so glad that he did, because we need a level-headed dude out there that can compensate for these moronic and just over-the-top commentators that claim to be, the heroes of young men, the Ben Shapiros of the world, or it could be whoever the Ben Shapiro is on the left. I'm not picking a side here. I'm saying there are people where when you turn on an article from, or a video from them and you listen to what they have to say, the first thing they're going to say is, look at what this other person did or said. And this has been counterproductive to keeping your cool as a man for as long as I can remember in my life, is to get wrapped up in what's going on out there when we got enough shit going on right here in our hearts, in our minds. We have enough problems to deal with without arguing amongst ourselves about things that, whether they matter or not, we don't personally have a stake or a vested interest in, or an ability to change. And this would be most of politics. Sure, you can vote. Yeah. You can, vote on policies, you can vote on ideas, you can speak your mind about things, but we've seen that the type of heroes that are out there for young men are the Andrew Tates of the world, that are trying to basically sell you some sort of bullshit so they can continue to live their lavish lifestyle and pretend that they're not just hurting inside, because The truth is, being a man has nothing to do with how much money you have. It doesn't matter how many women you have, how many cars you have. And for the longest time, people were able to make the argument, well, people are just jealous. They just wish they had that money. That's just not the case, and I think most folks know that's not true now. Because a lot of us could make a lot of money if we really wanted to, if we were willing to totally fuck over our neighbors, friends, and family, and random strangers on the internet, or build a YouTube channel aimed at like 10 and 12-year-olds, and then convince them to buy some crypto bullshit that you pull the rug out from underneath them. And these people continue to be the heroes. As watching this unfold, people like Jake Paul, right? And Logan Paul. God, I get them so easily mixed up because they're both just idiots. But one of them pulled the whole crypto scam, and then, of course, people just defended him. And this is just one of many things he did. But, creating the Prime energy drink, right? Making just people who have the ability to make big changes in young men's lives and to actually help a fucking generation improve their lives are just piddling it away, so they can make a few bucks on their product. Not just a few bucks, but, billions of dollars going to these, quote, influencers, which, honestly, I did have some hope for the internet to be kind of a solution to many of the problems we have, but it didn't work. I just realized that my recorder isn't recording. I wonder why. That's weird. Well, I guess I'm only going to have a video version of this. So I guess it's not a podcast after all. It's just a YouTube video. Dang it. I was really hoping to have another podcast. My technology... You see, this shit's falling apart. My technology here is just... It's pretty funny shit. It's funny because it's real shit. And that's what I appreciate about many of the real people that I find on YouTube still. Like I said, like Dwayne, the Dry Creek Wrangler School. He's just a well-spoken guy who most dudes who watch his channel probably have never put on spurs or a fucking vest at all, or ridden a horse. Just like, why do I relate to this guy? Because men are men. And because the bullshit social structure we have right now has convinced people that we need to overthink what it means to be a man. And does it mean you have to be able to, does it mean you have to have weapons? No. Does it mean you have to even know how to defend yourself? Well, to an extent, I guess that would help. But that's not what it's about. It's not about physical strength. It's not even about knowledge or mental strength. It's about wisdom, accrued wisdom over a lifetime that a man can use to improve his life and others. And when you're young and dumb and full of you-know-what, you've got a lot of attitude, a lot of opinions that you think are righteous. And once you get into your 40s and go into your 50s, and then, the older you get, the more you realize, if you're fortunate, the more you realize the less you know. And at that point, then we can start to kind of make amends with ourselves for our own ignorance and start to truly learn. And that's what wisdom is. It's shutting up and listening to the accumulated knowledge that we've acquired over our lifetimes. And I feel like so many young men feel very rushed to acquire that wisdom. And I just have to say, it cannot be rushed. And you have to be willing to be patient, but you also have to pull your head out of your ass if you think that it's just going to happen for you. Every person has to put in their effort in this world to, find out who they are and become the person they want to be. It's not something that just happens to you. Because as people say, if you don't make a life for you, then it will happen to you. Make life yours or it will make you its. You have to make a decision somewhere. And I say this out of from the bottom of my heart, from a guy who has always had a hard time making decisions. And I haven't made always the best decisions. Fortunately, meeting my wife, having my family, I think that that's the best decision I made in my life. And without that, I really probably would have been pretty out of balance. But who knows? You can't speculate on the what could have been or who you would have been. But to me, the family is the most important thing. But then there's also me, the single individual. And as a man, you have to take care of yourself. A lot of men are extremely selfish and they think that everything should be about them. But then there are men out there who really give, and just can't express themselves in how you truly feel. And I understand that. When you have feelings that you can't really tell the world, you know, the way you really feel deep down inside, you want to, but there just aren't words for it. You know? I've thought about this a lot, and it's my belief that it comes in archetypes and ideas rather than words, which is why we have a hard time expressing ourselves and struggling with explaining how we really feel. We understand the archetype of the family, the friend, the hero. It's something that just we've passed down through the generations, perhaps epigenetics, perhaps there's some code in there, an instinct deep in the man's heart where certain things just feel right and make sense and are understood in a way that can't be explained to anyone. Not even other men, not just women or kids, but just there comes a point in your life where if you're listening, then you hear the call, and the call comes in a form that you never would have expected. And this might take a lifetime to acquire, a lifetime to find what your purpose might be. So many people are in a rush to get somewhere. They feel like they have to make a bunch of money and start some tech company and be famous or whatever it might be. If your brain is telling you that all that matters is profit and all that matters is having enough money to survive. If you're afraid to start a family, not because you don't want to deal with the complications of having a family, but because you're afraid you don't have enough money, it's kind of like you'll never be wealthy enough. You'll never have enough to really feel comfortable, because human nature is that, especially as men, we never feel like we're quite satisfied. So you have to learn to quench that inner voice and realize that it's not you that's not satisfied. It's that there's a part of you as a man that you want to be able to help all those around you. And you feel like if you can't provide for everyone, then you might feel like a loser. And I know that feeling because I've had it before. I've never been a wealthy person. I work hard. I'm a blue-collar worker. And I think all the other blue-collar workers out there understand. There's a vast difference between, a remote tech job working from home and going on site to someone's home and climbing in their attic in the middle of the summer to do carpentry and getting fiberglass all stuck in your face. There's a vast difference in the things that we do in this country, but also the things that bring a man satisfaction, that a lot of men who don't have jobs where they're able to really express that kind of, it may sound shallow to some, but I have to say that you need to realize that this is the way the real world works, not the way that the media portrays this, this idea. There's nothing wrong with effeminate feelings or sides of men being able to have a feminine side. Hell, I learned about this before I was even a teenager. I remember people talking about like how men should show their feminine side more, and I did. Hell, I wore a skirt when I was in high school. I was a deadhead, had long hair. My mom thought I was gay for the longest time until I had a girlfriend. And we just don't really understand that there are many degrees of masculinity and femininity, and nobody has to be anything, because this doesn't come down to the gender or the sex issue. This comes down to the fact that there is a large swath of society that has these attributes of being a man, whether people think that's a thing or not. It's half joking, of course, because I realize there's only a very small group of people who really make it the biggest deal to worry about gender norms and differences. To me, it's just a roll of the eyes. I know there are different people out there. I know there are intersex people. That doesn't change the fact that young men around the world, billions of young men, are struggling to figure out where their place is in a world where they were told, at least their parents were told, people like me, that, hey, if you go to school and you go to college, you can get a good job, you can get a house, white picket fence, and you can retire. All these things have disappeared. The housing market is bought up by BlackRock and various other hedge funds, which just want to continuously pump out profit. Many of these have sold out to overseas competitors like, Chinese firms buying up housing tracts in the U.S. It's nothing like it was 30, 40 years ago when I was a kid. And my wife and I bought our house in 2004. We're still paying it, of course. We haven't paid it off. But if we hadn't bought it then, we probably never would have been able to, just because of the way the market has gone crazy. And so I know that may sound trivial, but it's not. That is huge for people. And the fact that folks are trying to convince young men that it doesn't matter if you can afford a house or even afford to own a car, just work hard and pay your bills and just be grateful that you have all these services. You can get an Uber, you can get Uber Eats. Trying not to be the old man screaming at clouds, but it's kind of a I told you so moment for a lot of people right now, that these industries, these kind of giant startups with all this venture capital, could make Uber say really cheap and then boost the prices up as they have after they already screwed over the competitors, and now kind of dominate the streets with the taxis. People have become lazier and lazier as far as getting food delivered and whatnot. Is it a good or a bad thing? I don't know. But it's just change. And change also brings a lot less independence. And men need to be more independent. It's like the Right to Repair Act. Not letting people not just fix their own phones, but fix their own cars, right? Fix their own tractors. Huge issue with John Deere. Actually, farmers went and they got, from the dark web, they got Ukrainian hacked plans so they could utilize their, get the plans to fix their own tractors, because otherwise John Deere would charge them to do it, because everything's run through GPS and they can shut their machines down remotely. Dudes just want to be dudes. They want to go out on the farm and be able to do their thing, right? Just like guys in the city, the dump truck driver or the carpenter or the ditch digger. They just want to be able to do their job without all the hang-ups and all the bullshit and bureaucracy. But times are changing. I will definitely admit that. And I realize that a lot of these jobs, which I'm definitely not sitting here screaming, we need to bring back tough guy jobs like coal mining. A lot of people died from black lung. A lot of people suffered, through some horrible conditions to make other people money, which has kind of been capitalism 101 from the beginning. But most guys just want to work hard, be respected. And as somebody said, when you leave this planet, you want to leave a hole. And it sounds like a bad thing, but really something to think about as a guy. What will happen when you're gone? Create an environment where people will miss you. Be loved, because it's not just for your own good. It's for their good too. Knowing people, bonding with people. Being a man means being able to connect with everybody. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't always have to prove yourself to other people. Sometimes you can just sigh, roll your eyes and walk away. Metaphorically. Don't roll your eyes, preferably while they're not looking at you. So you can't win that way. But, it's about humility and being calm. And the older I get, the more I learn about this. And I've known about it my whole life. But how hard is it to act upon the things that we know are important? Right? So, with that said, thanks for listening. I plan to make another video. I see I still have some time on here, but since I don't know why this podcast part shut off. But for those who aren't aware, I do have a podcast that I'll record these onto. It's called 15-Minute Free Thinking. And we also have information in the description, Patreon, and all that stuff. I appreciate all of you who listen to this channel. And if you have any specific requests of discussions pertaining to men and going through the shit that we have to go through, because I am going to be making some more, just leave them in the comments, what you'd like to hear more about. For me, this helps me as well. It's for me to get this off my chest. We're missing rites of passage and this connection to one another to be able to do things that used to be just normal for kids. Take them out hunting or shooting or hiking, anything like that, a fireside chat and chanting some songs, going to outdoor school, something simple. Those things are all great, but we're even missing that in a lot of cases. A lot of kids are really missing out, and they just aren't being given the right information. And being a father myself, raising 3 boys, I have one that's grown, he's 30, and one that's 12 and one that's 15. So it's a very difficult stage for us and for them. And we just push on through, because that's another thing, acknowledging that every other man's going to be the man they are. And that's, I think, one of the strongest things we can do is just let people be who they are and try to help them discover themselves. Other men, especially our own kids. We might not always get along with our kids. We might not always get along with our parents. But we have to try to be the most respectful people we can to one another. But set your boundaries and do not let anyone cross them. It's my final note here. Yeah, we have to be kind, we have to be considerate, peaceful, help others, but do not let any other man or woman cross your boundaries, because if you can't take a stand for who you are as a man, then you'll get stepped on your whole life. You have to let your friends know. You have to let your family know. This is how I feel, not just about topics. I'm not saying you have to say, this is how I am politically and religiously. Preferably don't, because those things are fluid, and we do change our opinions over time. But just say, I won't accept this kind of behavior. I don't accept lying or cheating or personal insults, whatever it might be that really bothers you. And don't be afraid to speak up and tell people that's how you feel. Because ultimately, you're protecting yourself and them in the long run by letting people know where you stand. And I think that that's one of the most manly things, a person can do. There is the archetype of the wise old man. And I'd like to part on this note. The wise old man isn't necessarily wise just because he's old. Anybody can grow a beard. Anybody can grow old. It may take a certain amount of wisdom to get old without dying, but generally in the society we have today, it's not too hard to live to a ripe old age and having absolutely nothing to contribute to anything. But every old person has stories and a different way about, a different outlook on the world. And but the wisdom is based on different types. There's a certain cynical wisdom, right? There's intellectual wisdom. There's kind of a drama wisdom or a societal wisdom. There's different wisdom people have depending on how they grew up and the environment they grew up. Then there's, of course, the common threads like, how people are. There's a general consistency of people's attitudes throughout all societies, although they do differ, of course, within different societies. The point being that the archetype of the wise old man can be a misnomer, a total misunderstanding of, the truth of the matter. If somebody looks like Gandalf, they could be a total moron. But even listening to the words of a person doesn't necessarily convey their wisdom. You can often see it in their eyes. You can see it in the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. But sometimes wisdom is hidden behind what sounds like lunacy. I've met some old guys who just sound like crazy at first, but man, they're some of the smartest people you'll meet, because language is very difficult to explain the things that we know to be true, especially life experiences. And I can imagine it, when you get into your 80s or 90s, it's difficult to convey some of those things. But there's many different stages of life, and I hope that each and every one of you find a way through them successfully. And no matter how bad things get, remember, always remember, this too shall pass. Just tell yourself that. It's all we can do. We can't play the victim and complain. We have to fight through it, because nobody's going to do that for us. And when we do it, we show others that they can do it too. And then we build a stronger society and have a stronger family and community. Peace out, and I'll talk to y'all next time.